All right, today we have a guest who doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. He's known as the momentum maker for entrepreneurs, the best-selling author of Branding as a Machine, and a consultant to world-renowned brands like Disney, Google, Starbucks, and a mindset mentor to elite entrepreneurs all over the world. But John Michael Morgan's journey wasn't a straight line. He battled depression, anxiety as a young man, spent years drifting through various professions before finally finding his calling, and transitioned from a successful career in real estate, actually selling his business, to becoming one of the most sought after coaches, with clients staying on him for average of 7 years. He's a husband to his high school sweetheart of more than 20 years. He's got 2 kids, lives in Nashville, and has built a life and business centered around freedom and family. He's a firm believer that the only way to improve your income is through self-improvement, and he's on a mission to help world changers get out of their own way. We're going to dive into his incredible story, from early struggles with his damaged self-image to mindset philosophy. We'll talk about the dark side of entrepreneurship and much, much more. Please welcome John Michael Morgan to the show. John Michael Morgan, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you, man. Glad to be here.
Dude, I'm so glad to have you. So we're going to talk about a lot today, I know, but I want to start on a little bit of a less talked about topic. I think you have been extremely open about your mental health struggles and struggles with depression. And I want to talk to you about that because, as far as I know, in my life at least, you are really the only person that I would say has won what we would call the battle with depression. Like you've been able to make these huge strides and come off of some of the medication, all these different things. I would love to talk to you about that. And I know I've also heard you talk about how it affected your identity. And that's another big thing that you can feel free to talk about as well. Like, from my perspective, one of the issues that I see is that once we diagnose somebody as depressed, which is a very kind of loose diagnosis, we don't ever undiagnose them. Like, it's a lifelong thing. And that's a big problem I feel like that's really ineffective. And I would just love to hear you talk about how you navigated that, because you are absolutely swimming upstream in the way the system is designed and laid out right now.
Yeah, thank you, man. That's interesting. Like it weighs on me. Like it's kind of hit me that you're talking about, being one of the few who's kind of overcome it. And, you know, I'm proud of that. And at the time, one thing I learned about depression or whatever is like, there's different causes. It affects people differently. And so, I don't want to say like, oh, here's what works for me, so it'll work for everybody. Like I don't
Sure.
know, but I'm certainly able to share what helped me, and to give even some context. So I think it was about 1993. I got on antidepressants and I was 12. So from 1993 to 2021, I was on antidepressants.
Wow.
And it wasn't until I switched doctors and she was like, "Do you still need them?" And I was like, "I don't know. Do I? No one's ever asked me that."
What a simple question.
Yeah, yeah. And she was like, "Do you want to try coming off?" And I was like, "Yeah, for sure. I would, love to do that." There's no shame in getting medication. And there was a time I absolutely needed that, but it was also this sign of maybe I have figured out, some things that I'm better equipped now, and I don't necessarily need the medication. Very
Mhm.
proud to have not needed it, since 2021, let's say, or maybe even again, didn't need it before that. But I got through it in a few ways. I mean, one, if it's okay, I'll say like it's God and leaning into him, and also my wife, who we met in high school in the thick of the worst of my depression seasons and battles. And she was always right there with me, even though she didn't always understand it. It's really having, an anchor or a support person. I don't know that I'd be here if it wasn't for her. That's heavy for a opening of a podcast, right? But it just
Yeah.
kind of the reality of it. But the more practical things, I think, is that there's a few things, and you and the audience may find this interesting. Over time, I learned my triggers. I learned what triggered the depression. I learned what triggered me out of it. And I started to be able to get very purposeful and very intentional about those things. I knew the warning signs, and I was able to then change habits as a result. So, like, an example of one of those would be the more isolated and alone I feel, like it starts coming on. So you're able to look at my calendar and see do I have, scheduled outings or conversations or something with high vibe people that is going to give me life and keep me going? And if I'm all of a sudden starting to feel like I'm in another dark season, I could look back at the calendar and go, I've not really connected with anyone in 90 days.
Yeah.
This is probably why I'm feeling this way, right? And that's just an example of one of the triggers. But once you have that, you can kind of reverse engineer, and then this is the best part: create a life by design. Like, how now can I be intentional on everything that I'm doing because I know the positive and I know the negative. And then the last thing on that is, you mentioned, how it becomes this identity for people.
Yeah.
And I had two things that kind of hit me. One was that I was a huge fan of Nirvana, which, when you're a depressed teenager, Kurt Cobain's not really the role model.
Yeah.
But he had this lyric in one of their songs that always was the great way to describe it, where he said, I find the comfort in being sad. And I realized that eventually it becomes a comfort zone. Used to being depressed, it's all you know. And then
Yeah.
it's the story you tell yourself. I am a depressed person. I am high anxiety. I am this, I am that. And just you're just living that out instead of going, what if I told a different story?
Yeah.
And that was a big part of it. And I'll tell you, the thing I will say that absolutely got me out of every time in my life when depression hit, and it hit as an adult in times as well, and how I keep it away and how I've sort of won that battle is, and like, this is the thing that no one wants to talk about, but I am literally now too busy to be depressed. Like, and maybe I'm outrunning it, but I've got a good head start. Well, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm about to at this point
I'm
because when I look back at the seasons that I was the worst, I had nothing going on.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't be more upset with you right now because you just opened up 15 different places for us to go down. On that
Let's
last
now
one, it's
let's shift
interesting.
and talk about AI.
It's interesting, that last one, I'm actually ashamed to say I don't know his name, but there's a really popular, I think he presents himself as a Shaolin monk type guy, but he has a lot of like wisdom content and stuff like that online. But he was doing a TED talk where he said exactly that. He was like, 150 years ago, nobody had time to be depressed. There was too much to do.
I
They were
know
too
who you're
busy
talking.
doing things. Yeah. And I do think there's something to that, which is probably its own podcast episode on its own. I just, again, for anybody out there, like, not a mental health expert, not a doctor. I don't pretend to be one. Just observing depression in my friends and my family, and close relatives, things like that. I do have, I think if we look at it in just a binary sense, the system's obviously broken, right? Like, we have the best technology any human has ever had before, but yet it's getting worse every year. And it's like, the more people we treat, somehow fewer people are actually like getting better. And we don't seem to be moving the needle on these things. And like you said, I think I'm so grateful for that doctor even just asking you, like, do you want to
Yeah.
try something different?
Right, right.
Because
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a really big moment. I love reading, and I love reading old books. And I found this old book with a very like controversial title called The Art of Selfishness. And it was a bestseller in like the 1930s or maybe even 1920s. And it's, this guy's a doctor, and there's literally a chapter in it called How to Prevent Suicide. And that was the most punk rock title of an old book. Like, just what in the world is this guy saying? And the whole prescription was to go get into nature, and how we didn't really have some of the depression and some of the mental health issues until we became a society that is so based like indoors and
right,
all the time. And this now is, almost 100 years ago that he was writing this. It's worse today. But that
right,
was one of those things where I looked at that and I thought, I don't see how going outside is going to, cure me. But I also knew that going outside isn't going to hurt. So what if I
right,
got intentional about getting in the nature? And that's why I say, like, for me, it wasn't even necessarily one thing that I did. It was knowing, okay, isolation's bad, so let me make sure I'm surrounded by the right people and intentional about that. Oh, being in nature is good, so let me make sure I'm intentional and consistent with that. Like, it was stacking up these things that then go, okay, awesome. But to your point, the problem with that is, how does a doctor, how does the medical community today monetize telling people to go
right.
outside?
Exactly. Yeah.
They don't. So they don't want, and not even that they don't want to talk about that, but they're trying to, it's a business.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And it's like, I'm not the one who said this, but someone once said, watch how fast the medical industry would change if we only got paid on results. Like if the doctors only got paid if
Yes.
you got help,
Oh my gosh.
right? Like
Right.
so if you went to the doctor and you're like, hey, I'm on 12 medications. What if that doctor only got paid if they could get you on the two? Right? But they don't. Like,
Yeah.
they don't get paid for subtraction. They only get paid for addition.
Yeah.
And so it's a messed up sort of system, but that's where, I would say to anyone who has any form of mental health, like you have to be the one pursuing it. Like you've got to be that
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that doctor asked me if I still needed to be on the medication, but also one of the reasons she asked me was because I was showing no signs of it and hadn't felt depressed in over a decade, but I was still on the medicine.
Yeah. And I love what you said there. And I certainly don't want anybody to mistake this as like a conspiracy theory, but anytime I'm talking about any system, I always look at what are the incentives, right? It's a similar thing in my mind with the media. The media is not paid based on the accuracy of the information they deliver. That's not what their incentive is. They're based on how much they can hook you into watching. So you can very quickly see where that changes the kind and type and the way they're going to manage that process. And it doesn't necessarily have to be anything nefarious. It's not like there's a bunch of people like, how can we keep people drugged up? But like you said, as a physician, my business is built on treatment models and keeping people in. So it's like, how do I do that? This is the way we do that. And then a lot of people just execute the plan. And like you with they don't ever stop necessarily to look back and be like, are we still on the best plan? Is this the right thing? Should we change? And yeah, so it's
Well,
really complicated.
and I'll say something that may be, slightly controversial here, but defending the medical community, what choice do they have when most people don't do anything for themselves?
100%.
Right? So it's like, hey, if you went outside, if you did this, if you did that, you wouldn't necessarily feel as depressed. Cool. The patient's not going to go do that. So now the doctor's
Right.
like, all right, then I'm going to try to solve it with this magic pill and hope that it works
Yeah.
because I can't get you to do the work. And that
And
where
what they want is they just want you to not kill yourself. Like ultimately, that's
absolutely,
they're
yeah,
optimizing for. Okay, we could take some risks and maybe do some unconventional things, but
right.
if we fail, I've got a patient that commits suicide, and can I live with that? And so, no, I'll just keep you on the meds. That's going to be better
Yeah,
for everybody.
and it applies to anything, Roy. Like,
Yeah.
are we willing to do the work? I know people who are like, oh, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my vision is for life. And I'm like, cool. But if you're just sitting around waiting for it to find you, it won't.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's gonna find you in motion. It's gonna find you in activity, right? And that's the thing is like, I've done a lot of studies on like the concept of momentum and what it actually is and that feeling. And it's only ever discovered or caught. I think of it like a wave, right? Like it's always out there, but we have to kind of catch the wave sort of a thing. But if you don't go get in the water, you don't get it.
Yeah.
If you're not
Absolutely.
in motion, you're not going to get momentum. And that was a big problem for me. Even like in the pressure was like, okay, well, I feel like crap, so I won't do anything. Well, that's not making
Right.
me feel better. That's making me feel worse. Right. And so it just
Yeah.
comes back to, even now I can sit here and go, oh, I'm not feeling great. Like for a couple weeks now, I've not been feeling great. All right, cool. Let me look back. Have I been meditating daily? Nope. Have I been journaling daily? Nope. Have I been outside? No. Like I can, and it's like, okay, well, maybe I should do those things that I know work, at least work for me. Maybe I should get back on track and be disciplined on those things. And then if I still feel bad, let's figure out what's next. But that was for me, like the way I kind of got to the point I am at today. And I feel like I have this like great handle on it. And I feel like I do because life has thrown stuff at me, like family deaths and different things that,
Yeah.
like there's grief, but like, oh, this could be a trigger to something else. And it
Right.
hasn't happened because during those seasons, I've stayed disciplined on, I know what's going to keep me on the right track and keep me going. And so I just got to get up every day and keep moving.
Yeah. I wish that I were joking when I say this, but you go to funerals more often than anybody I know.
Oh, dude, it's absolutely comical at this point. And to give context, because this is the thing, I asked my mom one time, I was like, how many funerals have I been to? And she was like, let me start making a list. And she got to 100 and was like,
Oh my
she was like, I
gosh.
give up. And that was like a few years ago. So it's just added. The problem has been twofold. My dad is like one of 9 kids. And, by the time my dad came along, he's one of the younger ones. His older siblings were already married and having kids. And so you get this like generational staggering, right? Of like, cousins and second cousins. And like, it's crazy. So he's a big family, right? Because all of them go off and get married, all of them have kids, and they have kids, it's a whole thing. But then on my mom's side, this goes back to my great great grandfather, who was an absolute like hellraiser. He first gets married at 13 years old. Like, what in the world? Yeah, like what?
Wow, different
And
times.
exactly. So he gets married at 13. That's when he starts. He ends up getting married 5 times, has multiple kids with each marriage.
Wow.
So I then grew up knowing my great great grandparents, my great great aunts and uncles, and so you got like that line of family that has to pass. Now I've got my great grandparents. Then,
Wow.
I'm just now losing, my regular grandparents. Like,
Yeah.
so it's been this thing of thankfully very few tragedies, but also like, yeah, like we'll have, 4 or 5 funerals a year because, when you've got 10 people in your family who are 90, making it to Thanksgiving, you know what I mean? Like, that's
Yeah, they're
just the
not all gonna
reality
make
of
it.
it.
Oh, man, that's a whole your great-great-grandfather is a whole 'nother conversation I would love to have, but I
Yeah,
don't wanna skip
because
something you said.
side note, keep your thought. This is a dude also, by the way, who murdered someone and was never arrested because the town back then didn't have police.
Wow, what?
Yeah,
That's a book, dude.
good old-fashioned bar fight, this is
Wow, that's a book, man. You should definitely get that story on paper. You mentioned something earlier about faith, and I wanna talk about that because I wouldn't even call it a working theory. Let's just say it's like a recreational hypothesis. One thing I've heard people say about the medications they use for depression is that they do take off the lows, but they also shave off the highs. Like they keep you in this middle ground of
Mm,
emotions. So you don't get these kind of peak joy, bliss, happiness. The thing I've been thinking about, because my spiritual development and growth has been a big priority for me lately, is that in my experience, I know that when I experience like unconditional bliss and peace, like those are the moments in a meditation or prayer or whatever, where I'm moving closer to God or source.
mhm.
So I'm curious what your experience is with that as somebody of faith that's also been on these medications for a long time. What are your thoughts on that? Because it seems like we're potentially, to your point about knowing the things that make you feel better and get you out of depression, it would seem to me if you're spending a lot of time in a depressive state, one of the best things for that is to help you understand there's also the opposite of that. You can still have joy and bliss and happiness, and that would give you some balance, but we're taking away both. And I guess I don't know what the effect of that is long term, but it seems like it could be robbing people of that sense of meaning and purpose and connection to something greater to them.
Yeah, I think that was my personal experience. When I got on the medication, I wasn't feeling any highs of life, right? There was
Yeah.
no like it was naturally muted from the depression, right? Like the whole like you got a dark cloud over you and nothing seems exciting. I mean, that was it. Like the things that had made me happy were no longer making me happy. Like there was no
Mhm.
joy in anything. And so the medication helps, like you said, like kind of level that off where those lows don't get too low. In my experience, it definitely numbed the joy then as well. And there would certainly be times that I would experience these like high levels of joy. But when I would have that, it would almost be this, what is this thing? What is this feel? Like I don't feel this often. Why do I feel so alive
Yeah.
in this moment, in this thing? And then you put this pressure on yourself to go, I've gotta have these extremes experiences in life to get that feeling, right? Like, you're almost,
Yeah.
like, going after, like, the dopamine hit or, whatever,
Right.
and so that there's definitely that part of it where you're like, "Okay, this medicine is keeping me from, you know, being irritated or depressed or anxiety or, any and all of the above." It's keeping those levels, kind of normal. But I'm not also like there's almost like a limit to how much
Right.
joy I can get on the other side of this. And that, to kind of tie that back to faith, the one danger that I think I had is one, when you're constantly on medication and identifying yourself as a depressed person, it's really hard to see yourself as great. Therefore, it's hard to see yourself the way God sees you and the way God designed you and all the things that he's got, intended for your life experience and, what you're capable of and the journey and what you can pursue and grow. And so all of a sudden you go, okay, am I then I feel like I was going through life with my foot on the brake. That was it. Like, I had one foot on the gas, but I had one foot on the brake. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know if other people do this. My grandfather would drive like that. Like, his left foot would be the brake and his right foot would be the gas. I don't do that. I'm a one-foot driver, right? I don't even need my left foot. Like, my life, I don't even think would change if I didn't have my left foot. But he would drive, like, with both feet like that, and that's almost how I felt like life was. Like, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I've got my foot on the gas, but I've also got this other foot lightly on the brake, and so I'm never going too fast. I'm never, experiencing it fully." That what had ended up happening for me over time was robbing my purpose, right? My drive, my ambition, and all the whole time going, "I've actually achieved more than most, but
Mhm.
what could I achieve if I wasn't, handcuffed?"
Yeah.
Like, if I could fully, pursue that and pursue my faith and live that out in a more extreme way, all of a sudden, like, you feel more alive. That changes everything.
Yeah, and I'm very curious to start to talk to you about this now because in spite of all that, like you just said, I wanna really make sure everybody sees this. In spite of all the mental health struggles and everything that was going on with depression, you still managed to do more than, like you said, most people will do in their entire lifetime. And so how did you, if it's not too vague of a question, how did you do that? How do you have an identity as this sort of depressed, possibly even emotionally broken person, but then go on to still do these things? Like, how does somebody who's feeling like you're saying, they're at home, they're depressed, they don't have that drive, that motivation,
Mhm.
they feel like they lack purpose and meaning, but like you did it. You still got up and built a crazy successful real estate business and now a coaching business. How do you do that? How does something like that happen?
This is easily the best and most important question I've ever been asked on a podcast, and I'll tell you how, but let's first talk about why it was happening. Because the devil, the enemy, whatever you wanna call it, does not attack people with no potential. Okay? If you are going through something, it is obviously because you were capable of greatness. I believe that with everything in my being. And I think that was it. Dude, I could sit here right now. We could spend the entire day with me telling you about, oh, so I got this success and I achieved that. And then this happened. And I got this success and I achieved that. And then this happened. And I'll give you like a quick example of this. I was deciding to put my faith out there more in terms of my brand and my business. And I made this decision and I started telling people. And what happened immediately is out of nowhere, my wife went deaf for 30 days. We don't know why. Couldn't hear anything, dude. Like completely deaf for 30 days.
Wow.
Then, and during this time, then by the way, my house flooded and caught on fire. And some people could go, "Oh, this is bad luck. This is coincidence. This is, whatever." And I'm going, no, no, no. Like there's this quote. I don't know if it's C.S. Lewis or somebody, but basically, the quote is, and I've got it like saved and I look at it often, which is to be the kind of person that when, it's morning time, the devil goes, "Oh shit, he's up." Right. Like, he's go- and so that's one thing is because of my faith, felt like I am capable and supposed to do big, great things, but I'm broken and I've got this and I've got that. And eventually it turned into this realization of, yeah, like the enemy's winning. The more
Mhm.
self doubt I am, the more depressed I am, the more I procrastinate, the more, whatever, like, then it's winning instead of me.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, what happens is the less I win, the less platform I have to talk about my faith or
Right.
lead by example or, lead my family well or, any of these things. So the how in what you're talking about is one, I firmly believed that to a large extent. Now, that didn't just make all my problems go away,
Yeah.
but I did cling to that. Man, I'm still supposed to be somebody great. Like I
Yeah.
feel that that's out there for me. And then the other part was I'm chasing those highs. Oh, I'll be happy if I have all the money. Oh, if, I have this free time. I'll be happy if, you know, all the scenarios that we come up with, then I won't be depressed.
Right.
Right. Like I won't feel like this brokenness or whatever. So a lot of that drive was simply because I'm trying to survive.
Yeah.
And success was survival, and not in the sense of, "If I don't do this, we don't eat," kind of, but rather, if I don't have success, I may not make it out of this. Like, the
Yeah.
self-doubt, the depression, the sabotage, that it may win. And so, with that, one of the things that I started to do is, again, seeking, like, what's joy? And for me, one of the things I discovered is I loved learning. I love learning. So when I would learn, a new element of marketing or psychology or whatever, I could not wait to implement it in whatever business I had because that was what was exciting. That was like, all right, I got something to look forward to tomorrow. It was to the
Right.
point where we were in the real estate business. I remember launching a whole new marketing campaign over the summer and over like a 3-month period, we had over like 400 leads and I didn't call any of them. I was just so excited that the marketing worked. I didn't even want the clients. I didn't even want to go do the business. I was just like, this idea that I had in here, I made reality and it got the result. Isn't
Yeah.
this amazing? And that was when my wife Brooke was like, it's great, but what would also be amazing is if, we could buy groceries. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll start calling these people. Let me figure that out. So it was this again, like just staying driven because the identity was important to me and I didn't want to have the identity of a depressed, broken person.
Yeah. I love what you said there. And you'll know this, but for everybody watching, I'm a huge fan of nuance in conversations. I feel like the world right now is just way too low resolution. I feel like we need to be able to have these sort of more detailed conversations. And you just changed my mind on something because I would have previously said I would have previously just categorically said that the I'll be happy when thing is a negative aspect of life. Like it's a
Mm,
fruitless endeavor. And now as you're saying that, I'm
mm,
realizing like actually it could possibly be a coping mechanism of sorts, does actually spur you to action, right? If we were going back to what you said earlier of, okay, there's obviously depressed people, depression is real, it exists. It's going to be way worse if you just sit on your couch and do nothing.
mm.
So in that sense, the all be happy when, that being dissatisfied with where you are now, if that spurs you to like get off the couch and go do things, and whether it's hustle, and even if let's just say there's not balance in your life for a little while, maybe you're just 80 hours a week onto your, as if that keeps you out of the lows of your depression, then all right, well, maybe it's the right tool for the right time, right? So I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
adjust my opinion on that.
Well, I think that's really cool. And it was this thing of, I'm trying to succeed because society tells you to. Right. It tells you to do
Right.
these things. And I felt like I was checking the boxes of life. Like, oh, like I got the wife and the marriage check. And I will say, like, having that locked in was like, cool. I don't need to go chase women or focus on that. I can go build a
Right.
business and, those things. But even then, there was a bit of that pursuit. Like, I only got into real estate because I thought that everyone would go, okay, John's now a professional. He grew up. He's got like the
Yeah.
career. Like I was making money doing marketing stuff, selling things on eBay and all of that before the real estate business. But especially at that time, man, when you're 19 and you're handing your mom a couple $1,000s from this website called eBay, my parents were like, what? What is
Seriously.
this?
Yeah.
And so none of that seemed like a real career. And I didn't have anyone in my life to say, yes, it is. Right. So my even thing, I didn't love real estate at all. I literally got into it because it was like, all right, like I get to dress up. People understand this career. They understand what you do. So now if people are asking my parents, what is John doing? Oh, he's in real estate. Cool. It doesn't matter that he's miserable doing it, but it's like, it checks those boxes. But
Yeah.
what I realized in it was, it's that thing. You and I have talked about this before, but for everybody listening, it's your personal narrative. What is the story you're telling yourself? And so to answer your question, Roy, I'm like, how did I do all that while still dealing with the struggles? I was able to still maintain the story of, yeah, I'm still this good. Like I'm
Right.
depressed and I'm miserable and I struggle to be happy a lot, but I'm still absolutely capable of massive success. Like I just kept telling myself that story.
Yeah.
And I kept telling myself the story that one day it would be great and one day I would get past this. And I remember very clearly I was traveling and I was reading a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. Worst title of a book ever, yet one of the best books ever. And basically, to oversimplify the concept of that book, is he says you cannot outperform your self-image. Like it's kind of that Henry Ford quote, right? Like whatever you think,
Right.
if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. But in terms of our identity and how we see ourselves and what we think we are capable of. And I was sitting on the floor, I think at the Dallas airport, and reading this book, had like a long layover, and I'm just sitting on the floor reading. And I called my wife, Brooke, and I said, I've got great news and I got bad news. And she was like, what? And, she's thinking flight delayed, flight can't, whatever. Like, I'm not going to make it home in time. And I was like, the good news is I figured out what's wrong with me. And like why I'm not achieving some of the goals that I want. And she
Yeah.
was like, awesome. And she was like, what's the bad news? I was like, it's me. Like, it's all my fault.
Right.
Like, it's,
100%.
and I was like, but I also think this is great news because if
Yeah.
it's 100% my fault that I'm not succeeding to the level I want, then I'm the one who can fix it. And that
Right.
was such a freeing thought that then the next several years became, how do I write the most epic identity for myself and believe it? And that is when a lot of the success started to come. And so I don't know how like in the weeds you want to get with this, but like my first year in real estate, I sold 2 homes. One of those homes was the home we bought when we got married. Technically, I only sold one, like wasn't, doing it. To then 2 years later, be not only the top real estate team in our office, but in our region and, winning awards and everything for the whole Southeast of the United States. That seemingly looked overnight, but it was all me telling myself a better story about what I was capable of doing.
Yeah, I think about this a lot because it is admittedly it's a very hard conversation to have, especially with people who suffer from depression or any kind of really any sort of crisis of purpose or meaning. But one of the most helpful things that I've held on to as far as a narrative is that life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. Right. And that's not to say life is all good, but going back to like you talking about the flood and the fire and all this, if you're able to hit a roadblock, there's really only 2 options. You either say, this is going to crush me and life's too hard and I can't do it and all that. And then your life gets markedly worse. Or you can say, this is supposed to teach me something or make me better or develop me or whatever. I'm going to solve this because I can. And afterwards, I'm going to be a little bit better. When you start to approach problems with that sense of opportunity and it's what can I take away from this? And I'll admit, it's not always true. Sometimes tragedies happen. Like life isn't always fair, right? No matter your attitude, no matter like there are going to be awful things that happen. But if I had to pick one to use all the time, admitting that both are not, neither is going to be accurate all the time, at 100% would take this is happening for my benefit. And then figuring out, okay, what do I do with this? And I think
It's something that speaks to me greatly, and it changed my life and the results that I was getting in all areas of my life in a big way. Napoleon Hill said, the success is knowing the difference between a temporary setback and permanent failure. And that really hit me because, even as a coach, I see people go, it's over. I've got this problem. And I'm like, are you quitting?
right.
And they're like, well,
Yeah.
no. And I'm like, then shut up. It's a temporary setback. It's not permanent failure. But like
Yeah.
we as humans, we get really dramatic. We don't want to admit it, but we get really dramatic. And I still do. Right. I still do. I mean, the other day, I can't remember what it was, but I was going out to my truck. I dropped my keys. I've been down to get my keys and my coffee spills out. And I turned to my wife, I was like, this day sucks. And she's like, that was quick. Like, where you just labeled this day, right? This extreme thing. And I'm like, you're exactly right. Like, this is the day is not over. The day, it's not permanent. This one little inconvenience. So we have to understand that. But the other thing that he said, and I've actually, this quote from Napoleon Hill, when I was young and I read it, I didn't agree with it. And so I tore the page out of the book and I framed it, and I still have it hanging in my house to this day until I eventually saw that it was true. But he says, and every bit of adversity is the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And it's so hard to see that when we're going through adversity, like what good can come from this? What
Yeah.
purpose and plan comes from this? And I realize it's why he said the word seed. It's not the benefits immediate. It's not
Yeah.
big and clear and obvious. But I will say, and we talked about, death and those things, man, like not to get morbid, but because I've experienced so much of it in my life, one thing I've learned is the absolute second someone takes their last breath, your life keeps going, right? You're still here and the world's still turning. And it doesn't mean you don't grieve. And it doesn't mean that it's easy, right? Like, it doesn't mean any of that. But it does mean that like something can come from it. And I had a incident when I was a child that I was able to see this. My brother's 4 years older than me. And when he was in high school, his best friend passed away in a car accident. And it's really hard to see what good is in this. Seed of any kind of good happens to, a young man who loses his life and parents who have to bury their child. Like what there's no good we can see in that. And we go to his funeral and like the whole freaking high school is there. Like he was a popular, well-loved dude. One of my brother's sons is even, named after him. But at his funeral, the pastor's preaching and over 100 kids get saved.
Wow.
And it's like, maybe if someone doesn't believe the same faith that I do, they don't see
Yeah.
that as a good, powerful thing. But I've actually met some of those people now as adults who still live a life of faith, still believe that. And their life was absolutely transformed at that day. And that doesn't make the grieving for the parents any easier.
Sure. Exactly.
Right. But it does show that sometimes some like good can come from it. And I also
Yeah.
wonder, and we don't have to go down this, I don't want to get too weird on your podcast, but like I wonder sometimes when we have adversity, when we have tragedy, when we have a struggle and a challenge, if part of our job is to say, how do we make this good?
Right.
How can we have that responsibility to say, this sucks in every way imaginable, but let's not make it worthless. Let's
Yeah.
find a reason, to do something and find purpose in that. I don't know. That's just something I personally
Yeah.
believe and try to do.
No, I love that. And one of the reasons I love it is because we think about these sort of decision points, right? As something bad happens, how do I respond? The way that I play these out in my mind is I like to play them out to their logical conclusion. Okay, I could let this beat me, but then where does that go? And on a long enough timeline, it's like things just spiral downward from there. There's nowhere that ends up turning it around unless at some point I face a similar decision and I choose the other path. So it's then that path, I just can't let myself, as hard as it might be, if I lose a child, like it will be challenging. I have to muster everything that I can possibly muster to not let myself go down that path because the logical conclusion is only bad. It's only worse. So I have to stay on this
Right,
opportunity focused
right.
path, you know?
It's a mindset that we've gotten into in society, and obviously it's heavy in business as well, but it's what I call a transactional mindset. Like, "Oh, this thing happened, so it's bad. That transaction
Right.
was bad." Instead
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
looking at it and going, "How can this be transformational?
Yeah.
How can I learn from this? How can I grow from this?" Dare I even ask, how can I become better as a result of this? This is probably for some people a very simplistic example, but about 4 months ago, 5 months ago, we had our dog unexpectedly, passed away. Favorite dog I've ever had, made me insanely happy. His joy will like actually help me on mental health going, if this dog can be this happy every day, like what the heck am I doing? Like
Right.
I should be this happy. but also he had like, because he was a rescue, who knows what had gone on with him before, but like massive anxiety. You couldn't have anyone over because he was dangerous to them. Even taking him to the vet, we'd have to like take him in the back door and like just drop him off, kind of a thing, because if
Yeah.
he was there and my wife was there, no one could get near her. So and it was like then danger, like it was just crazy. So there was all these things. He tragically passes away at a season already where I was like, this year's really, really tough. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, how does this get work? Like, what's the seed of any kind of equal or greater benefit? And I talked to my wife and kids, and they were like, listen, we don't want to run out today, but we do want to get another dog. Like, we had two dogs. Now we have one dog. We'd like to go back to having two.
Yeah.
Like, we understand that the new dog won't be him, and it's not necessarily like replacing that love, but like we still have this love to give. And we should have still had two dogs, kind of a thing. So and we get this new dog, and it's like you almost feel this guilt in saying he's amazing in all the ways the other dog wasn't. Like, he loves everybody. Like, we can have people over. We can actually go take him on a walk. We could, take him to a coffee shop or whatever. Like, all the things that we had wanted to do before that we couldn't, all of a sudden, like, are completely opened up. And now I'm sitting here, and I'm not saying I'm glad things transpired the way they did, but I am sitting here going, the day I was burying my dog, I could not see how this is gonna be a good thing. You're right, but I'm sitting here today going, "Man, life's pretty freaking good with this new dog." And
Yeah.
and so it's like you just have to have that faith and that trust of we're gonna find the good. We're gonna create the good, man. We're gonna pursue it, because if not, what are you doing? You're just gonna
Right.
drown in misery forever.
Yeah. I love that. This is such a good conversation, man. One thing I do want to talk about, because I think it's important, on top of everything you did, building a business, doing all this stuff, mastering the identity, how did you do that in a balanced way? Because most people will not be any stranger to the hustle and grind mentality and the dogma and stuff that's out there. If you want to be successful, you got 80 hours a week and forget about everybody and don't talk to your friends. That's a culture out there. But you managed to not only do all this stuff, not only overcome the identity and the depression, all that, but you've also done it in a way that like your wife feels good about, your kids feel good about. You're not looking back and you're like, I'm really successful, but man, I should have done more with my kids, or I should have. It's like you're, as far as I can tell, pretty fortunate to not have some of those very common regrets of I lost focus for a little bit. And so I would
Yeah.
love to know how you did that, both personally, right? It's like I'm still in my own journey. It's like, how did you protect yourself from getting too one dimensional, and how did you maintain balance outside of
Y
business?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a couple things. I'll give you some context or for the audience. My father is a successful business owner, and that's the only credit to his name, right? Like, wasn't always the most present and attentive husband, certainly was not a present and attentive father. And so I saw the benefits and rewards that come from insane hard work, and also what's lost in some of the sacrifices along the way. So I had this thing, when I got married, I told my wife my number one goal was to not be him. Like, just don't want to be him. Like, when we have kids and all that kind of stuff, like I don't want to do that. So
Such a common story. I bet there's so many men out there that was like their guiding principle. Don't be dad.
yeah, yeah, like that, like this thing. And so, and my wife had it like on her side, like with her family, right? It was like, okay, child of divorce and, moving around all the time and, raised by a single mother. So like kind of running from bill collectors and all that. And so my wife was like, I don't want to get divorced and I don't want collections calling. And I was like, sweet. We can do this. Like, these are three easy goals for us to achieve. Like,
Right.
let's go build this life together. But I say that to give a little bit of background because it did start, Rory, with intention. Hey, I want massive success, but there are things that I absolutely know I'm not willing to sacrifice. And what I found is the only way to actually achieve that is to change how you're measuring success. And for a lot of people, especially as entrepreneurs, we measure success by, revenue. We measure success sometimes by like awards or our social media following, or, whatever. And for me, I had to look at it and go, my measuring stick and my greatest motivator is freedom. And so freedom means that at any point, nothing in my life should be controlling my schedule to the point that I can't really do what I want to do. Now, I've had seasons where it's felt like that and I'm irritable when it happens. So, what I mean is, then I'm looking at, okay, I'm going to block off time for clients and my business, and I'm going to work. And when I'm working, I am working. And I have my father's work ethic of just get out of my way. Like, I'm going to get this stuff done. But at the same time, I can look at that calendar and go, where's my wife? Where are my kids? Where's my faith? Where's my health? Where's my mental health? Like, you get, what's that saying of like, you can see what someone's priorities are by looking at their calendar. Right? I mean, that's just, it's why like I have people all the time who come to me and they'll go, I don't see how you read so much. I don't have time to read. And I'm like, cool. Like, tell me who was in the NFL playoffs last year. And they're like, oh, well, it was this team against this, and I'm like, you
Yeah,
have time
yeah,
to read. Like, it's not a priority. Like, let's just
yeah,
say it,
yeah,
how it is. So it's that intentionality and that measurement of, do I have freedom in the areas that I want? Meaning, do I have the freedom from my business to spend the time with my family that I want? Do I have the freedom from my family to go spend personal time, time alone, time, reading, meditating, etc. Like it's that measurement of it. And all of that was fueled by one of my early mentors constantly beating in my head, success is a marathon, not a sprint. And the reason I say that, Rory, is because what's helped me is anytime I get frustrated going, I'm here, but I should be here. I remind myself that I'm succeeding in other areas that some people aren't. And if it takes me longer to get to here because I didn't sacrifice those things, I actually come out on top. So it's one
yeah.
of the, like,
That's
I'm aware, like my brand could be bigger than where it is right now. My business could be ahead of where it is. However, my kids know who I am. I saw their first steps. I heard their first words. They, for the most part, like hanging out with me. So it's like, those are parts of success as well. But in entrepreneurship, we want to forget those sometimes.
yeah, yeah. I think a lot about what's the trade off, and I love what you said because one of the hardest things for me is as I've gotten into the entrepreneurial journey has been learning to be patient. And I think part of that is just, I'm going to use a word that's a little probably too strong for what it means, but that kind of the propaganda out there of you see it in all the marketing messages, like start your business, make 7 figures this year, even 6 figures this year. It's like everything is always time based. It's learn how to
Right.
quit your job and give your boss the middle finger in the next 90 days. And so I came into entrepreneurship with kind of this impatience of like, things should happen quickly and I should be able to control them and make them happen quickly and all these things. And that's why I love what you're saying. It's like you zoom out and you start looking at the longer timeline of the game. And Gary Vee talks about this all the time. He's like, if you're 40, you have 40 more years, like literally double your life left. You have time. There's no need to be in this like urgency because it definitely caused me to make bad choices early on. I chose the wrong trade-off. Instead of optimizing for what's viable, sustainable, what's going to allow me to keep balance, it was like,
It,
what's going to work now? And
right.
then it
Right.
led me down some wrong paths.
And I'll tell you, like, here's, that transparency, where I've been in like recent times. So there was a moment a couple of years ago that my wife came to me and said, your clients are getting the best of you and we're getting whatever's left. So I changed it immediately and made sure that my family was getting the best of me and figured out how to grow and expand and balance. Like everybody's getting the best of John. Like, yay, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Like, and then all of a sudden it occurred to me when she said the clients were getting the best of me and my family was getting whatever was left, then what was I getting? I wasn't even in the equation. And so that's been my recent journey of going, success in all the different areas, even then, doesn't matter if you're not successful to yourself, right? And taking care of yourself and those things like, oh, look how noble JMM is. He puts everybody before him. It's like,
Yeah.
no, actually, he's an idiot. and he's doing that to avoid working on himself. Like, look at this like projection. And so we have to sometimes be real with that. And to your point of like, we have time, that's where it comes back. Immediately when I started working on myself, guilt kicked in. I got
Mhm.
emails to respond to. I got content I could create. I could go on a walk with the kids. I could take, my daughter for ice cream, whatever. Like all these other anything other than let me sit down and take this time. And it's that thing, and you probably know this quote better than I do, but it's like if you don't have 10 minutes to meditate, you need to meditate for 60 or like
Yeah, yeah.
that. And I remember like I would sit there and I'd go like, all right, I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna meditate for 10 minutes. And 4 minutes in, I was like, "How freaking long is this? Like, I've got stuff to do." And I realized, like, it is so hard for me to slow down and take time for myself.
Yeah.
But that's where, again, like, it comes back to what are we doing? Like, this is a marathon. We've got time. So if you gotta go through a season of working on yourself so that then everything else is better, that's awesome. And if you gotta go through a season where, your family needs you, like, I've walked through stuff where, members of my family needed me, and so the business wasn't number 1, but family was for this situation. Also, in communicating with people, there's times when I let my family know, "Hey, like, I gotta work this weekend. This
Yeah.
is a busy thing. I've got this thing like, this is what I'm doing." And they know that it's not all the time, so they're super cool with it.
Right.
I don't know if it
Yeah.
helps or makes sense,
No,
but
I
that's
yeah, no, I love
some
that.
of that again, like
Um,
being intentional with these.
I think I literally just did this the other week. We've got our 6-week-old baby. We now have 4 kids. And, I woke up one morning and was just, like, not feeling it. I was just, like, tired, a little bit grumpy, a little bit I guess what you would probably identify as, like, starting to feel a little burned out. And my wife was like, "You okay?" I was like, "I need to get away from y'all." Like, respectfully, I need a break. Yeah, I just been in the house, like, around, like, nonstop, like, doing things in the house. And to your point, like, there's a million reasons not to. If I leave, even for an hour, then my wife is watching all 4 kids, and she's gotta deal with the newborn, and there's all these reasons not to. It's, "This has to be done in the house, and I gotta do this." It's like, "Don't." But I did. I was like, "I'm just gonna go have dinner with a buddy. I'll be gone for 2 hours. I'll be right back." And just that man, I felt so good when I got back. Just, like, getting some space, some distance, talking to a friend, but I recognize the challenge because, again, if we go back to people who are struggling with mental health and depression, like, it's part of what you said is that you have to value yourself. Like, you have to see yourself as an important priority. Otherwise, you will never make that decision.
Mhm.
And doing that, as ironic as it is, like taking away from my family for a couple hours actually allowed me to come back even better.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what? Do I just sit there and I just don't want to be around them for a full week? It's like, that's not going
Right,
to go
right.
anywhere.
Well, and it's so there's this concept that I feel has really helped me in my life, and I try to get my clients to think of it as well, which is if you're the leader of your home, right? Like, in whatever that looks like for you and your family, part of your job is to make sure that everyone has space on their calendar as well. And so here's what I mean. So I've got, 2 kids. It is my job to make sure that I get time away from my wife and kids. It's also my job to make sure she gets time away from the kids and me. It's my job to make sure that my son gets time away from his sister and time with me, but also time with his mom and right, like all these different things. And so all of a sudden, when I was going through that scenario, and it's like even more intimidating for you because you just keep having a bunch of kids. And I was going through this and I'm like, I don't know how to do this. How do I have time for me, time for us to have date night, time for me and my son, time for me and my daughter? Also, me make sure that my wife has time with her daughter, time with us, like there's all these scenarios. And my friend Chris Stoikos was like, why are you trying to do it all every week?
Yeah.
And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "A calendar's got 30 days, man." He was like, "It's got 12 months. Like, it's okay if it's scheduled out." And I was, "Oh, that's a good point." But that's that
Yeah.
thing of
Yeah.
like, I don't know if it's entrepreneurship or just like society, or maybe I'm just wired weird, where I keep thinking it all has to be now. Like, "Oh,
Right.
I've got all this stuff I wanna do. It needs to be right now." And you went and had dinner in that moment, and it was great. But the truth is, even if you were like, "In 4 days, I've got that dinner scheduled," okay, I'm gonna have that moment. And you would have felt
Yeah.
good leading up to that because you at least see that it's coming. That's a big problem. And again, like talking about intentionality a lot today in this conversation. Hopefully that's okay. But I find that thing of if I can at least know what's on the horizon, then I'm cool. So right now I could sit here and go, oh my God, like when are my wife and I ever going to get time alone? Well, if I can look on the calendar and go, oh, we've got this date night coming up in 10 days. Awesome. Now I don't have to worry about it today.
Right.
I see that it's there. I see that it's coming. Like, it's just designing that out, and urgency is great, but we're killing ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's an impossible task, like you said, to try to do it all in a week. So you can try, but you're just going to end up being frustrated and disappointed and probably dropping some balls. But if you give yourself
Right.
4 weeks, okay, this is a little easier for us to manage without being super busy. Always
Yeah.
be somebody's always gone.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So you were in real estate. Now you almost exclusively do coaching, which I think is a great industry to be in with the state of the world today and where AI has taken us. And obviously, I think there are elements of AI that can obviously help coaching. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think one-on-one coaching is going anywhere. I don't think people are going to want to log into Zoom and see one of Elon Musk's robots pop up and give them some canned responses to their questions. There's a human level of humanity aspect of coaching that people are going to want. But I'm curious, like, what does your day or week or month look like right now in regards to AI? How are you using it for a human first business? And what's the motivation? What are the use cases that you found for it in your business?
Gotcha. There are several I can kind of walk through. Overall, I look at AI as a tool to support, not supplant. Like, this is designed to support what I'm doing and not replace me and different things. So I'm a big believer in the 80-20 principle, or the Pareto principle, whatever people want to call it, which, as you know, is basically, hey, 20% of the actions I do create 80% of the results. My whole thing for the last 17 years of coaching has been, how do I only do the 20%?
Mhm.
Like, I want to be involved in the things that matter. So if there's a task that I can influence or impact the outcome of, I should be involved. If there's something that needs to be done that I don't really influence or impact the outcome, it's the same regardless, then I should absolutely not be doing it.
Yeah.
And that's where AI comes in for a lot of this, is going, okay, what are those things that I can automate that free up my time? Ideally, what I want to do, and this is what I've been creating recently, is I just want to have ideas for, content and creativity and coaching, and then actually do the calls, do the coaching. I don't want to do anything else. And so AI is able to step in and fill a lot of those gaps of just different things that you have to do. Do you want me to go more tactical and specific on what some of that looks like, or how do you want me to dive into it?
We can. I would also love to hear more broadly first. Like you obviously have a pretty wide and various client list. Have you noticed, is there anybody that's at more threat than others, especially like with the people that you work with, or maybe that are likely to be negatively affected more than others just based on their industry? Like, what have you seen so far
Mm,
with how
yes.
AI is affecting people's businesses?
Yeah, I definitely think there are certain industries and types of careers that are completely screwed. They've got a few years left and that's it. And I think there are far more that probably won't change as dramatically as people or maybe even hope that they do. I think that you have a few things. I certainly have heard and seen, when it comes to, like, let's take like software development. I've got a client with a team of 30 people, and he's already seeing that this time next year he'll only need two.
Wow.
And so you look at those things and go, okay, there's an industry that's going to be, greatly impacted,
Right.
maybe more radically than people realize, right? There's definitely that. I think what happens is you have a lot of the people who aren't protected are the people that, again, the work that you're doing, is it different because you did it? Or is it a very singular black and white result? Okay. So if there's not a layer of emotional intelligence that's involved, or psychology, or creativity, then it's easy to replace. Right. Right. And there's going to be things, by the way, this is what's interesting, Roy. Nobody wants to talk about this with AI. We have yet to determine how the marketplace is actually going to respond. Okay. So here's what I mean. I fully believe in the future, robots will cut my grass. And I will not feel bad about replacing my lawn care guy because it's not different if he cuts it or I cut it or someone else. Like the grass is still cut. No creativity to it. He tries to put
Yeah.
the lines in the yard, but like, that's not exactly creativity, right? That's just
Yeah.
trying to make a mundane job more interesting for him, which I get it, dude. Like I told him, I was like, freaking cut Mickey Mouse into the yard. I don't care. Like just, just do it. So those type of jobs, when it's like, it's no different if you do it versus someone else, you're vulnerable to what AI might come in and do.
Yeah.
But if there's an element of because you do this job, it's different, you're probably far more secure. So the things to look at when I talk about the market and how they're going to respond to things, we're already seeing resistance to a lot of AI creations. People are seeing the AI videos on social media or annoyed when they can tell that AI wrote the content or whatever. And that's something we don't yet know. There's a thing in like Disney talks about this all the time. There's a thing in psychology. Are you familiar with what's called the uncanny valley? So it's a psychological concept where we as humans see something, whether it's like CGI created or a robot or whatever, that seemingly is supposed to be human, but our brain can tell something's off. Like the way they move isn't human, the smile's off or whatever. And as a result, it kind of creeps us out. And a great example of this is if you go back to the movie The Polar Express. I remember when this movie came out, I was like, these kids look creepy. Like they're supposed to look so real, but I'm like, like there's something about it that just freaks me out. That's what uncanny valley is. And so
Yeah.
one of the things about AI is that to date, and in the future, maybe it changes, everything it creates on like that visual aspect has that element. You can tell like, oh, this is good, but there's something just not quite right. And I understand it'll get better and it'll get better. And maybe one day there's no discernible difference, but that's something where we've not yet had it scale to see how the marketplace will do it. If Hollywood comes out with a brand new movie starring Jimmy Stewart, and we all know it's not Jimmy Stewart, we do not yet know if people will still watch it.
Right.
Right? Like there are people who say they will, there's people who say they won't, but until someone actually fully tries it, we're not going to know.
Yeah.
So I think we are right now making a lot of uneducated assumptions about what AI is and will
For
be
sure.
and the different things that it will impact. But the other thing that I look at with this is not everything benefits from, instant answers. That's like most people right now, they're using ChatGPT like it's Google. And they're just, even just basic things, and it's giving them an instant answer. But
Yeah.
sometimes we need something like an idea or a concept is best when it's refined over time.
Yeah.
And we'll lose that if we keep leaning on AI for instant answers. Sometimes that's fine. And so that's where, like I think coaches are fine. I mean, the good ones are fine. The bad ones maybe not, but they shouldn't be doing it anyways. So this is a
Right.
long-winded answer. Hopefully I'm making some sense, but I think there's elements to AI we don't yet know. And so when we say what industries, might be okay and which ones might be bad, well, we don't know because I can think of industries where AI could replace every single person's job, but that doesn't mean that the market will respond positively to that. Right?
No, I agree with you 100%. And I think we probably underestimate consciously and subconsciously how much as humans we crave interaction with other humans. So even like watching an AI avatar on a screen, like I want to see, if I know that it's not Denzel, it's an AI Denzel, it definitely loses something for me because part of what makes watching it great is watching him as a human like me embody this totally different character and range of emotions and all these. And it's like, I can relate to those emotions because I experience them as well, but I'm also impressed by how much he can get. There's just all this depth to like watching a movie that's so much more than just being entertained. I think probably the people that will watch AI generated content is the people who just want to be entertained. I saw some video the other day where it was like it was a Sora video and it even had the watermark despite people in the comments being like, this is great. They thought it was real. But it was
Yeah.
like there was like a line of ICE agents, and somebody was like yelling in their face, and then you pepper sprayed them. And I'm like, this is mindless, like entertainment content. So if that's what you want, then yeah, I think there will be an element of that. But I just think there's so much more to, I don't think creativity is something that we can yet reduce to a robot. I don't know if we ever be able to. I hope not. I think it's uniquely
Well,
human.
well, I agree, and I think, you're talking about, like Denzel's a great example. Like, there's nuance to what he does, and maybe one day AI gets that good. Maybe not in our lifetime, but there's also, in anyone who creates anything, there's happy accidents, right?
Right.
Have you seen the movie Django Unchained?
Yeah.
So, Leonardo DiCaprio slams his hand on the table, shatters the glass. That was not in the script. So that's his real blood.
Right.
Keeps going and they keep the cameras rolling. You would never have that moment with AI,
Right.
right? Because that's an accident and an actor going, "Ooh, I'm going to use this."
Yeah.
Right? Again, what's the benefit of this adversity? Oh, I've just sliced my hand open. I'm probably not gonna be able to film for a while. Let me at least get this scene, done,
Yeah.
being, real professional and using it in that moment. Those are things that, that we lose. And it's even one of those things where, like, if you take, animated movies, we lose that same thing in animation. Like, it's easy to make it perfect, right? It's flawless. So it's presented in this, no mistakes kind of format. And therefore, I think there's a limit to what we enjoy with that, right? But
Yeah.
the thing that you said a moment ago, I think is the big part of this that's always missing. Like, Toy Story worked because it's an incredible story. Like,
Right.
yes, it was innovative in terms of like computer done animation and all of that, but like it's a good story with good characters and a good
Yeah.
script. And that's the thing that I also look at, whether it's a coach or a media buyer or, whatever career someone might be in, that skill of storytelling. And also, by the way, the skill of being a good communicator, this stuff is going to be, that's who the kings and queens of the world will be.
Right.
Those people who know how to do that, that they've got everything. And that's where I say, for other people who, oh, like you're a coach and you've got clients and like you're good at it, you're okay, but you don't know how to go on a podcast and tell a story or communicate, a little, kind of mic drop sentence that's going to be a great social media clip and all of this stuff. Like, you're not going to make it, because
Right.
we're going to gravitate towards the creative storytellers like we always have. It's just going to be more so because, to your point, the AI videos, people are going to go, yeah, that's fine, but we know exactly what it is. So we're not gravitating towards it. It's just mindless
Right.
content that we consume while we're scrolling.
Yeah. So then to circle back to the tactical side of things. So like, how are you using it day to day? What does a normal day look like, or week, or whatever time frame with you in terms of AI? Like, where have you inserted this in and are starting to lean on it pretty heavily?
Yeah. So let's take one of the things. I'm a big believer, at least at this point, in I like to write my own content. I love writing. I like being a writer, and I'm working on an upcoming book. I'm writing the book, right? Like that's me writing. But in it, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm going back over the last, actually more than 17 years, but my whole career, and saying, what is everything I have learned about branding, being able to put all of my past content into AI, hundreds of coaching calls, et cetera, and then going and say, what did I say? What's everything I've ever said about this topic, is giving me a shortcut to make sure that I'm not leaving stuff out of the book.
Right.
Right. So I'm still writing it, but now my research is seconds instead of hours or days or weeks,
Yep.
or right, or paying someone else hours and days and weeks to do that same research. So that's one thing, that I'm doing. I did this for this podcast. I was like, all right, let me drop your other episodes in to see what kind of questions you ask. you know, I'm not aware of what questions you were asking me today. So it's not like I've got pre-scripted answers, but it gives me context, right? There's people who show up on podcasts and they don't even understand the tone of the podcast. And it's like
Yeah.
clear. And that's hard for the audience then. You know what I mean? Like I have this recently, there's this podcast, they've done like 3,000 episodes. They had this
Wow.
guest on, and this dude was so unaware of what this podcast is. And as a listener, I'm going, what the heck? Like this dude's embarrassing himself and he doesn't even realize because he's just missing like so there's some shortcuts there that we can do, right?
Yeah.
So some other ways that I'm doing this is, a lot of, email, there's ways that AI can manage that, how leads come in, how leads are up, all that stuff all of a sudden doesn't have to be me. Now, I'm a big believer that the recipe of success is human plus AI interaction.
Yeah.
And what the problem I'm seeing, Roy, is a lot of people are delegating to AI ways that they would interact with their clients or their audience. Like that's probably going to be a mistake. Right, right. Like
Right.
instead, I want to use AI up to free me going, now I got more time for my clients.
Yeah.
Because I'm letting AI do all the other things. So there's a lot of stuff that I use it for, like accounting. There's again different ways I use it, for research. You had even taught me this. It's really simple, but like I've got, Chat GPT emails me every single Monday morning with anytime a big company has like rebranded. And it also then filters through my past content and goes, you might want to talk about this because in the past, here's like angles you've mentioned. So maybe this is at play here. And it's just suggestions for me, but like that's shortcutting content creation.
Right.
And, giving now I'm not having to constantly be on my phone looking at, what's going on out there, what, is supposedly important. I'm shortcutting those things. So I look at AI right now in my business, in my life, and I go, cool. How do I just automate as much of the mindless stuff as possible? The other night, my wife had my kids, they were at rehearsal and they were like, dude, like you make dinner. And bless her heart, my wife was like, I've already got it mixed in the bowl. I just need you to do these things and whatever. Like, like make it idiot proof for me so that they come home and it's actually, edible. But I took her text and then I gave the chat GPT and I was like, just read this to me out loud, one step at a time, to help me do this. And that's a lifestyle thing. It's not even business.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
here's the thing that allowed me to work longer because I could work right up until the point that I knew I had to go make dinner instead of
Right.
stopping early and going, I got to figure out what the heck I'm supposed to do. Cause I don't like, we just moved recently. I didn't even know how to turn our stove on. Like, I didn't know, like, it's got, Wi-Fi in it, like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a smart stove.
it
You got all,
was
it's
like,
like
just,
fingerprint biometric identity.
yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
what is this
She was like, just on the app, program it. And I'm like,
on the F?
I don't have our stove app. I don't know what you're even talking about. Like what is happening? So it's it's those ways that I like to use AI. I also I journal by hand. So I may end up having to change that to make this easier. But I'll have like my daughter scan those in to AI and then be like, hey, give me patterns, give me some themes.
Yeah.
Am I complaining about the same stuff that I was this time last year? Give me some insights. Now, you have to be real cautious about that because I don't think we should outsource our thinking to AI, but I like to use it to be a jumping off point. So again, I'll
Right.
create content. I'll write an email to my list, let's say, and I have a project set up in Claude with every email I've ever sent to my list in my entire career in there. And I'll write a new email and I'll plug it in and I'll just go, is it on point?
Mhm.
Like, is this consistent with what I've said in the past? Is it different? Am I growing as a writer? Like I'm looking for that kind of feedback because you're not going to get that feedback from the audience, right?
Yeah.
As much as I'd love it if someone on my email list wrote me back and they were like, dude, I've been on your list for years and you're a much better writer today than you were years ago. They're just not going to do that unless you ask. So I like to look for those insights because I'm trying to measure, am I growing in the ways, again, that I want to grow? So the other thing that I've done is, I screenshot my calendar and I give it to it and I say, my list of values and priorities. Am I in alignment or not? and just to see like where are those gaps,
Right.
you know? And so I like to use it in some of those ways. And then of course, AI agents opens up a whole nother like tool of, again, like what can we automate? Ideally, Rory, what I want to do is I want to come and sit down in front of the microphone and just go. And I want everything else that has to happen before that and everything else that happens after that to not have my involvement. And if AI can do the heavy lifting on, let's even just say 60 to 70% of that, then holy smokes, it opens up a whole different world. And that's the thing, like, there's no excuses now. This is the problem that I have. People are using AI to create content. They're just going, hey, ChatGPT, write me a post about LinkedIn
Yeah.
marketing. And then it's garbage. But so you shouldn't do that. But the way you can use it is to have it know your tone, know your audience, know your style, know your goals, know what your business is, and then no longer sit down and create content staring at a blank screen.
Mhm.
Ask it, hey, everything that you know about me, what are 3 things I might need to be talking about today? And then find one of those ideas, and then you go write up the draft.
Right.
Right. But like it's a jumping off point. It saves you time.
Yeah. I think it's really helpful for a lot of people, or at least it's been helpful for me to not think of it as artificial intelligence because it's really not that smart, and to think of it as large language models because that's what it does really well. It's like you were saying, like, hey, I've got these 3 transcripts. Like, what are the pattern? I could sit here and read all 3 of them and make notes and format
Mhm.
outlines and try to pick out themes and all of that. Or I could just give it to AI and say, what are the major themes from these 3? What do they have in common? What are they different? What do I need to do with it? It's boom, minutes, you
Right.
got it. That's a game changer.
It
But
it
as
it
far
it
as
is.
AI,
Eh,
I tried using it the other day I created an agent that pulls recipes. So similar to like you talking about cooking. Recipe pages are my least favorite page on the website, on the internet. Like they're just the freaking worst. They're like little ad bombs. And so I created an agent that goes into the recipe page and is supposed to just give me the nuts and bolts, buy these ingredients, here's how you cook it. The freaking agent left off water. You're supposed to add water. It didn't put it in the list of ingredients because it wasn't like a proper ingredient. But in the instructions, it was like add water to X. It just skipped it. And so so that's the level of intelligence we're at, is what I'm trying to say.
yeah.
It's not artificially intelligent. It's got
Here's
gaps.
yeah, here's a great example of this. I saw my friend Seth Godin speak at an event. Man, I bet it was over 10 years ago. And I can't remember the entire point he was making, which I apologize for, but it was brilliant. He said, everyone raise your hand as high as it can go. So the audience does. And he goes, now higher. And they all go up a little more. And he goes, what just happened? He's like, because I said, raise it as high as you can. Then like you purposely held back and then you went more. And that's AI. You could literally go write the best freaking social media Instagram caption that anyone's ever seen that's going to go viral and blah, blah. And it does it. And then you go, now make it better. And then it
Right.
spits out another. And then you go, now make it better. And it spits out. And it's like, if we don't have discernment on what's good and what isn't, and what's relevant to our audience and what isn't, and what we need and what we don't, then AI is actually useless
Yeah.
because it's just going to put out the thing that we are telling it to put out. And as an example of this, you talk about like, I don't think coaching, one-on-one or maybe some capacities coaching will be impacted, but not to the extent that a lot of coaches are probably worried about. And here's a great example of this. I can type into ChatGPT or Claude or Manus or whatever and go, look, here's my business. And when I create content, like people engage with it, I get good feedback. I'm good at converting people to clients, but like I don't really promote myself enough. So give me some help. And it's going to go, you should do a webinar and you should do this and consider a newsletter and like all these ideas. And it's like, okay, fine. But then it's up to me to pick one, figure out how to do it, what like all that stuff. Versus there's a coach named Marshall Goldsmith, and he's a legendary coach who coaches CEOs of like Nike and huge companies, Heinz and all that. And Marshall has mentored me before, and he and I were walking, and I was telling him that I don't promote myself enough. And he stops and he physically grabs my arm and he looks at me in my freaking soul and he goes, let me ask you something, John Michael. And I go, okay. And he goes, do you have an incurable disease that keeps you from promoting yourself? And I said, no. And then he cussed and was like, then effing do it. And then kept walking. And it was like, AI is not going to do that.
Yeah, 100%.
That was, a hard wake up call of like, oh, okay, like cut to the chase. And, maybe not everybody needs that tough love or whatever, but
Yeah.
that's the thing is like, I didn't need ideas. I needed someone to call me out.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Right.
AI is never gonna do that. It's the worst about just agreeing with whatever you tell it. You could literally get in there and be like, "So I think I murdered my wife last night." It'd be like, "Obviously, it sounds like you're going through something." It's, "No, I need you
Right.
to not just tell me everything I do is okay. I want you to disagree with me a little bit." No, I agree with that 100%. How are you so what does your business look like over the next 12 months with AI or without AI? What are you excited about? What are you focused on? Like, how are things changing if they're changing? What does the future look like for John Michael Morgan?
I'm very excited about it. I think that there's going to be some bad things about AI that happen and like job loss and different things. And so I'm sensitive to that. But overall, I'm excited. I think that it's going to allow us to learn things that we normally, don't have time to learn or, what. I was sitting in the car the other night waiting for my kids to come out of their practice. And my wife was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm talking to ChatGPT back and forth about how in their culture, in the Viking culture, women were allowed to fight. And this is the time when like women were like the lowest class, citizens on the planet. So did they give them authority to like do the like I have this?" And she was like, "What like what?" And I was like, "I don't have time to learn this stuff. Like this would have taken me years
Right.
to learn."
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like going back to school or, reading a bunch of books. Like I'm just like having this little conversation. I had this random question, wanted a little bit of insight. That's exciting. Like that we could as humans learn and evolve and educate ourselves on some new things because we've got time to do it. But back to your question in terms of the business and where it's going and where AI plays a role in this. I'm very excited about the idea of helping people in terms of AI actually run their brand effectively. And that doesn't mean create an artificial brand, but rather, again, there's this thing that you're good at. How do we come in and set up AI to support your brand so you just get to go do the thing you're good at? Not unlike what I told you. I just want to show up on the calls and coach people.
Right.
Like, I don't want to do everything else. I just want to do that. I want to do that for clients. I want to go, cool. How do you make the best ice cream in the world? How do we help manage everything else so you get to go just do your art and serve the
Right.
people the way you want to? How do we help you do that? And so I think there's a few things. One, in the future, if you do not have a brand, you're not going to survive. Like your ability to get attention and build connection with that attention is going to be whether or not you are successful or not, because everyone's going to use AI to make the brand and it's all going to look the same.
Mhm.
People who don't understand the nuance and the psychology behind how big brands were actually built, they're just not going to make it. 10 years from now, the only people getting business are going to be brands. Because again, if everyone has a robot that can cut your grass, why are you using one over the other? It's a
Yeah.
race to the bottom on price. You see what I'm saying? Like the onus is going to be brand. And so, in some ways, by the way, that's always been true, but it's going to be big time in the future. So I look at this and go, how do we help people grow their brand? But what I often see, and again, I've coached for 17 years, and what I see is that people get so caught up in how long it takes to do everything. They're taking too much time preparing for their coaching calls, too much time creating content, and then they're still not creating enough content or good content, and all of these things. And so they are the bottleneck. And I want to remove the bottlenecks in someone's business and brand and use AI to help do that. And so that's the thing is like, how do we get you to do your art, your thing, do your skill set, and let everything else be greatly reduced and taken care of? If you're spending 8 hours a week creating content and we can cut that down to 1 hour, now what? Now you can have more clients or go be with your family or go meditate or go what like, that's real time. saved. That's what I'm looking at doing because I see a lot of people out there and they couldn't double their business right now. They couldn't handle double the
Right.
lead. They don't have time to service more people. So that's the thing is I want to use the rest of my career to help people increase their capacity. I think that's the big like theme that I keep thinking about. And I think AI can help us do that.
That's great. You reminded me of something I meant to ask you earlier, but I forgot. You talked about obviously using AI and getting some of your time back. Day to day right now, what are you doing with that time? Like, how are you leveraging the freedom? Is that going to more non-work stuff, or are you just focusing on other things? Like now that you've gotten some capacity back, where are you putting that attention?
And it's a good question. One thing is like yesterday is an example. I went on a walk 3 different times.
Nice.
And I think that's probably a total of I didn't really track it. Let's say 90 minutes probably,
Right.
throughout the day. 6 months ago, I couldn't have carved 90 minutes out of my day.
Yeah.
Like, no way. And that was to just walk. Sometimes I walked with the dog. Sometimes I walked with my wife. Sometimes it was wife and kids. So you get, whole family time in it. That's happening daily. That's a huge change in terms of what am I doing with freeing up that time. The other thing is I'm able to get back to working on my book and get that finished. And then just I've already seen in testing the content I'm creating is getting better results. And I think it's because I've got time to put a little more thought into it, right? A little more. And I don't even mean, Rory, I don't even mean thought into the hook, even the way it's written, but thought in what is it right now that I know people really freaking need that's driving me crazy. And so
Yeah.
there's like an emotional punch to the content. I've actually got space and mental bandwidth to think about that. It used to be, "Oh, here's a content idea. I have to create it because I don't have time for other ideas." The luxury of making better choices and better decisions on what that stuff might be, right?
Yeah.
So that there's that. So there's like the nature aspect and the physical aspect of like you're just getting outside, getting some exercise, doing that with the time. There's more time, to write. And then I would say the other element of it is I'm actually having time to learn again and grow because one, AI is moving fast, so you want to learn that. But two, like I'm always trying to be a student of marketing and psychology and branding and business growth, and I have the time to do that while never suffering with the clients. So
Mm.
that's a great thing. It used to be my life looked like when I was not on a phone call with a client, I was too mentally exhausted to do the other work. And that's not the case now. Because I'm
Right.
freed up with a lot of that work, I actually have time to go, no, I can stop and think for an hour and be strategic. This is fun.
Yeah.
So in many ways, I've fallen in love with business all over again.
Yeah. No, I love that. Especially if you, like you said, you're getting to spend more time really just doing the things that you're great at. So this is fantastic, man. We're at 90 minutes already. This is crazy. This conversation has flown by. Just as we wrap up, I'm curious, is there anything that we talked about that you wanted to circle back to, or any points or thoughts that you had that you maybe didn't get to make or that we got away from?
Yeah, can I rant about one thing that I
Send it.
kind of I kind of touched on, but I think it's really important. I know that this podcast is about a lot of things, and it's for coaches, it's for agency owners, it's for these entrepreneurs and people, growing and wanting that the business success, but the life success and the balance and all these things. I don't know why this is, other than maybe it's almost like we talked about before the medical community. What I'm about to say isn't as easy to sell. But something that has been happening for far too long that now is going to really cause problems due to AI are entrepreneurs who are not working on their craft. And here's what I mean. There are too many people who are the same kind of coach 3 years in as they are 7 years in. That's not okay. A chiropractor at year 10 should be better than they were at year 4. And that is something that not enough people are taking the time to do. We're trying to improve our marketing skills and our advertising and growing our social media audience and using AI. We're doing everything other than how do I actually get better at the freaking thing that I do? And
Right.
so that is something that has always bugged me, but I'm seeing it already. If people don't keep working on that, AI will eat them alive. And so I'm a coach, so I go at this from this point of view. But my thing is not only how do I become a better coach, but how do I become a better communicator? Because with different clients and personalities, I know what to say. It's do you know how to say it? And are you ever working on that? And I am really concerned about how rare it is that I get asked those questions, right? I have people in my social media, who will write and go, how do I grow my brand? How do I, get a new logo? How do I use AI? How do I do this? And no one's saying, how do I get better
Right.
at this thing that I actually do? And I'm like, don't complain when AI does it better than you if you've
Yeah.
not ever
Right.
even tried to become better at it. And so I know that's a bit of a rant. Thank you for letting me do it. But that's the thing. Like in the future, the world is going to absolutely belong to the communicators. Is- But that's going to just be more so. If you know how to communicate effectively, you win. I don't care what industry you're in. But no one is ever stopping and going, how do I improve my communication skills? How do I say this thing that I say better? How do I make sure that it connects with the audience? How do I make sure that it lands? What do I test in that? No one is focused on that. It's just, I don't know, it's a mind-blowing
Yeah.
thing. And not long ago, because we were grabbing again like old content to put in kind of, AI and pull some stuff out. I found a MP3 recording. This is
Right.
how ancient this is. Yeah. Stone age, basically, of a coaching call that I had done. There's no video or anything. Excuse me, just the audio. And I listened to it, and I was so happy because I have no idea who that person was. I don't communicate the same way. I don't sound the same way. Like it just, and there was no embarrassment of, oh, look how dumb and bad I was back then.
Right.
Instead, it was awesome because 17 years into this, I should be better.
Yeah. We would hope.
The problem if not. And I'm curious, I don't know if you've seen this in your work and industry, but I just see people not working on their craft, not working on communication, and instead they're working on everything else. The things aren't important, but I'm saying not working on your craft and not working on communication is absolutely going to come back to bite you at some point.
Yeah. No, I think again, going back to, I think I mentioned this in the intro before you hopped on, but yeah, income follows self-improvement. Income improvement follows self-improvement. I've heard you say this a million times. And I think you're 100% right. I think we get to a minimum standard of performance or capacity or whatever it is that we think we need. And then a lot of people fall in the trap of, okay, I'm good. But we should always level up,
Yeah,
keep going.
absolutely. And we can wrap it up on this one example. I spoke at an event recently, had a insane number of speakers at this event, so it's kind of like rapid fire, people going, short talks. And I was in the green room backstage. So speakers would kind of come back, from behind the curtain, come back to the green room, and then they would hang out for a bit. And something that I've always done when I speak at an event, when I get off stage, one of the first things I do, man, whether it's in the notes app on my phone or if I've got like pen and paper handy, I write down what went well and what didn't. Like, hey, they laughed at this joke, this example. I noticed they all started taking notes, like what resonated and what didn't. And none of these other speakers did. They just came in and were immediately talking and, all that, which is fine. But it
Right.
occurred to me that 5 years from now, they'll be the same speaker they are today, and I don't want to be. Well, I want to be better 5 years from now than I am today. And so that isn't like, hey, look at me, I'm awesome. It's that somewhere along the way, we've lost the pursuit of greatness in the thing that we did. And I just saw this thing like social media, you click on something one time and then it's going to show you, eight of the same thing.
Yeah.
And, there's all these incredible statues that Michelangelo created, most of which were like between the age of like 20 and 24. And I'm like, I like, first of all, at 20, I don't think I was capable of creating anything. Certainly not, a statue out of marble and all this stuff. But I'm also going, I don't know anybody today that could do it. Anyone who's that dedicated to their craft that in their early 20s could actually create a work of art that, thousands of years later, we all still, are impressed by.
Right.
And I think that's a problem. Like, we're not
Yeah.
working on that. So, anyways, that's my rant.
I agree, man. I think that's perfect. And I don't really have anything to add to that. So I'll just say thanks for coming on, man. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I know we went all over the place in terms of topics, but I loved it. So
Good,
glad
man.
to
Yeah.
be here.
Hopefully people enjoy it. That's awesome, man. Thanks again.